Alright. Paladin. Auto defense matrix. So, the obvious comparison is to Noble Sacrifice. I think it's actually quite a bit better than Get Down, honestly. On average. Obviously, in like a Baku deck or something like that, something where you have lots of Silverhand recruits about, is not that great. But if you're playing like more average-sized minions, like this just gets much better because it's going to deal more damage. Also, quite notable, it does not trigger on your face, which is actually, I think, an upside. Normally, when you're playing secrets like this as a paladin, you're the aggressor, so you don't really care about getting punched in the face. You care about protecting your minions with secrets like this. So, it being harder for them to just like dagger your face or something to defuse your defensive secret, that sounds like an upside to me. I know it makes the use of the card narrower, but the kinds of decks that historically have used these cards in the first place, this should be a benefit to those. So I think the card's pretty good. I don't know if it's going to see like a lot of play because secret paladins of this nature haven't been seeing play, but I don't know. Maybe in Wild at least it'll probably make its way into that pool. Might even do like a one of Noble Sack, one of this. Christology. So 2 mana draw 2, very powerful. 2 mana targeted draw 2, also very powerful. 1 attack minions, it's really interesting. There's a lot of really cool 1 attack minions. Linessa. Linessa is a 1 attack minion. This draws Linessa. Stonehill Defender sees play in Paladin. 1 attack minion. Tar Creeper sees play everywhere. 1 attack minion. Righteous Protector, one of the best 1-drops in the game. 1 attack minion. New cards, we have, like, if you're going the mech way, we have Upgradable Framebot and Glowtron, both 1 attack minions. Like, there's a lot. You don't have to put in a lot of effort to find a bunch of things that this can pull from your deck. So if you're just naturally going to have these cards, then a 2 mana draw 2, it's a no-brainer. That's very powerful as an effect. So, yeah, I think this card is great. Crystal Smith Kangor, being said, probably not one of the cards you want to put in the pool. I could be wrong about this. It might be better than it looks. Doubling your healing can be a big deal. And like if you just look at what it is, it's like ignore that it's a legendary, just 2 mana, 1/2 Divine Shield. So it's a sticky guy. And if they have to attack into it both times, with the lifesteal and the effect, you're going to heal for 4. So 2 mana, 2 dinky bodies, heal for 4 is not the worst card. That's not the worst card, right? And it gets like aggro. That's something I'd love to play in the early game. That being said, it doesn't seem great to me. I don't know. I'm not impressed with Kangor. I could be wrong on that one. I'm not impressed with him though. I don't think he's going to be very impactful. Okay, Anoia module. This one's pretty good though. So if we look at it from like a buff perspective, I think it's pretty good. Like you compared to Blessings of Kings, obviously, but you get most of the stats of Blessings of Kings. Slightly less attack, but most of the stats, and you're gaining Taunt and Divine Shield. So it's got that defensive aspect. It does make it harder. Like sometimes you'd want a Blessings of Kings one thing and then hide it behind like a Righteous Protector or something. So it's hard for them to get at it, and it can hit them in the face a bunch of times. You can't do that, unfortunately. But you do get the Divine Shield, which I think is a big point in the favor. It makes it really easy to like trade into something, and you have this big like tempo and value swing. And you can still just go face with it. Like it's not buffing the attack. +2, like if you put this on something with like 3 attack, you know, you're still hitting them in the face for 5, and you're making it hard to remove. I think it's a reasonable buff, and it can just be played on its own, of course, as a mech. Pretty reasonable taunt, kind of comparable to Sen'jin. I think it's slightly better than Shieldmaster, probably. So yeah, it's a reasonable minion and a reasonable buff, so it should see play if there's any sort of Paladin mech thing, which there probably should be, because they have a lot of good mechs, and they have Christology, which draws them. Prismatic Lens, draw a minion and a spell. Like, if we just stop there, this card's pretty good. It's 4 mana, draw 2, which seems overpriced. But you're drawing a minion and a spell, which means you're going to have a wider variety of things in your hand. There are games, we've all been there, where your hand is just all minions and you have no spells to quickly react to the board. Or the inverse, where you have only reactions in your hand and nothing to play onto the board. Cards like this allow you to maintain like a balance between the two. You have stuff to do, you have stuff to counter what they're doing. Nice little thing. Then we get this wrinkle of swapping their cost. Like, this is insane combo potential. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the combo potential is, but it's obviously there. So we'll just have to see how long it takes for somebody to find it. But, you know, I mean, sometimes this can be a drawback, right? Like, you get like a 5-drop and an equality. I guess you can play the 5-drop for 2, so it's not a huge drawback. But then you have this equality in your hand that's like kind of dead. 5 mana equality is not great. I don't know. The card should be good, but it's not like an auto-include kind of good. Mechano Egg. So, Scalemancer saw play in Paladin for a while. Because it was a 5-drop that you could just throw Spikerid Steed on next turn. It just like lined up perfectly in the curve. And it turns out that a 4/8 taunt that when it dies summons a 2/6 taunt and an 8/8 is pretty good at winning games. So this is even better at that, actually. This is same spot in the curve, mech synergies, even better, and if it dies on your turn, you still get the 8/8. So it just seems way better than Scalemancer, so it should be good. That being said, meta concerns. We're in a silence meta right now, and we will probably be in even more of a silence meta after the expansion comes out, because the only new keyword in the set is silenceable. So it probably, like, I know it's lame to be like, oh, dies to removal. But realistically, there's going to be a lot of silence. And if you Spikerid Steed this and it gets silenced, that is fucking disastrous. You spent 2 cards and 11 mana on an 0/5 that does nothing. Like, that is incredibly bad. So I don't think this will necessarily be something we see. Like, when the expansion comes out, I don't think this will be necessarily that powerful. Maybe it can be. But there's a lot of silence. But just like, if you ignore what the meta is, if you ignore how common silence is at the moment, this is a very powerful card. Just on its own, this is an extremely powerful card, especially in Paladin in particular. So definitely keep your eye on it. I wouldn't expect it to do anything right now, but just that it exists is really cool. Shrink Ray. This is AoE polymorph. It doesn't actually polymorph anything. It doesn't transform them. It doesn't silence them in any way. So that's worth noting. Not that great against like Hadronox or whatever. But against a bunch of big stuff, it is essentially an AoE polymorph. So it's very strong. Glowstone Technician. 6 mana 3/4 +2/2. We had a 5 mana 4/4 +1/1 to everything that saw play. Granted, that one kept triggering, but normally it would die the second you played it, and that was actually pretty good. So this instantly gives everything +2/2. That's pretty good. It's actually a really good card. I don't know if there's support for it in Standard. For one thing, at the time when hand buff Paladin was a thing, we had God, I can't remember all the cards now. There's too many cards in the game. The 3 mana 2/1 charge Divine Shield guy. That was a big part of why hand buff Paladin worked so well. Because you could buff that up, play it instantly, start trading into stuff, and it would the Divine Shield would soak it up. Like, there's a lot of support like that. I don't know if Paladin has that kind of stuff. Plus, there were other hand buff cards in general. This is the only one, I believe, that Paladin has, other than Valinir. Just kind of a different thing. So I don't know if this card's going to do anything right now, but it is a good card, and maybe in wild hand buff Paladin lists, you can put it to good use there, because it's definitely a very powerful card. It's one of the stronger hand buff cards they printed. Excuse me. Kengor's Endless Army. I mean, it's like the Diamond Spellstone. It's obviously very good if you can make big mechs, and that shouldn't be too hard to do. You just have to be careful about how you play mechs. Like if you're planning on really needing this to be a thing, like if you're in a control matchup or something, you just have to be more careful about how you play out, like your Glowtrons, your upgradable frame bots, that kind of things. If you just play them out and just hope they don't get removed, then when they bolted or whatever, you can be really sad if it ends up getting revived off of this. But if you're just careful about that and time things so that they're magnetic, like the turn you play them, I think this should be pretty powerful. Especially if you can set it up to always get back a big Ziliax. Because then you have something that you know, you play this and you can do something right away. You're making a big board, you're interacting with the board, and you're healing. That's very powerful. So this should be very powerful, but you have to be careful with how you do it, and it's a one of, so, you know, kind of a downside there. Unless you have Glowtron. Just, yeah, Dire Mole. Dire Moles are good. Dire Mole's seeing play everywhere. At the moment, Magnetic, Mech, solid. It's just a solid guy. Just as a buff, you compare it to Power Word Shield. You don't draw a card, but you get extra health and an attack boost. So that I'm like that seems pretty worth it. Like a little bit worse than Power Word Shield as a buff, I think, because there's a lot of value in drawing a card. But I think they're pretty similar, and this one can just be played as a minion, like on turn 1, and it's this is tied in stats with kind of like the premium 1-drop of the meta right now. So yeah, should be good. And that wraps up the Paladins. Interesting class. I'm interested to see if Mech, because Paladin's not doing much other than Baku stuff. I do want to see if Mech Paladin can be a thing, because it looks fun. So, fingers crossed.